Hello, hello. Welcome to a Dreamer's Experience Conquer the Chaos. I am Sean Laurie, and as a father of four and being an entrepreneur, I want to give you guys different insights and tools, either for myself, my wife, or others, that will not only help you be a better parent, but help you as an individual be able to conquer the chaos. So, guys, this week I am so excited because I have Mandy, who is amazing. She actually provides advocacy services to people with disabilities. There it helps. I'm sorry, excuse me. Helps them with their parents and also caretakers. So I'm just super hyped. I'm super excited to have her on here because she's similar to my wife, guys. So the fact that I have her on here is like a big W in my eyes. So I'm super excited. But what I like to do, Mandy, I like to do a little icebreaker just so we can get the jitters out,
Okay.
right? So what is one song that comes to mind that you have to sing, or maybe your kids have to sing, or you guys sing it as a family? Like, what is that one song that, if any?
You know what? Like we really, because the three of us are
Mhm.
so different. So for me, like I like anything that was from the '80s.
Mm,
So, and any kind of music. And then I have Sonata who loves worship music. And then
yes.
I have Mariposa who is like into rap, hip hop, R&B, and stuff. So, um, I wouldn't say there's one song
Okay.
for any one of us, because there's just always music going on,
Okay.
whether it be in the car, whether it be at home. So yeah.
So it's not like there's no like Christmas song, or no
No,
church song. No.
no, there's no like one song. And I think like when it comes to music, like I don't even mention that I listen to the '80s because they're considering that oldies right now. I'm just like, wasn't that long ago, but
True.
so I there's like not one like particular song or that I'm like really into like
Oh,
right now. And I don't listen to a lot of music lately,
really?
so yeah.
All right. All right.
So
We're gonna have to change that.
yeah, I have Sonata, I have Sonata in the background all the
That's
time,
true. That's
singing
true.
and
She
listening to
she
her
she
music.
is a famous artist, so that
Yes.
is that is true in the making. Um,
Hmm.
so I would love for you to just share like your story and how you got to the place you are today, where you are really, providing these great services to people with disability and helping the parents and things like that. Like, what is your story? Just a little bit of your story and just how you got to the place that you are now.
Well, I mean, it started with, of course, with Zanata.
Mm,
That's where the majority of my experience stems from.
mm,
So, she was diagnosed with um, moderate to severe autism at a year and a half. So, from that point, she's 18 now.
mhm,
So, there's just been many different situations where I have had to be her advocate, which um, isn't that big of an issue because I'm the mom. So obviously, I'm going to go up to bat for her.
mhm,
But it really the idea kind of blossomed because about 4 years ago, I started homeschooling my children through a charter school,
mhm,
and my and Zanata had to meet with a special education teacher for a couple hours a week. She worked with another student, and so me and that parent were always in the lobby talking. We got to know each other really well. And she was just uh, like, I would not want to go into an IEP meeting with her. Like, she
mhm,
is just like that strong of an advocate. And so she wanted to start an advocacy business. And um, we would talk about it all the time, and it was just an idea that we had. I didn't necessarily want to be someone who would start a business,
mhm,
um, because I was already working in healthcare.
mhm,
So um, at the beginning of COVID, early in the year, she actually passed away, And so it kind of got shelved because I felt like it was her idea and she would be able to, you know, plan everything. And I was just going along for the ride. Like basically, I was going to volunteer for her. Like I just, knew that there was a need. And because like it just kind of got shelved and I felt that she was the one that should have led that aspect, I could still see the need for advocacy for people with disabilities, not just like within the school system, which is where the majority of my cases are, but just out in the community.
Hmm.
Zanata is now a young adult, so I see where there's just not a lot provided. There's also not the things that are provided, like there's not a lot of access
Hmm.
for them to like really enjoy being out in the community. So, um, so that's kind of how it got started, and it just kind of I didn't really expect to be as busy as I am,
Hmm.
but I am, and I'm thankful for that. And but also it's unfortunate that I am that busy. So, but um, it's helped a lot of families, and it's kind of like grown into something even bigger because it's conversations that need to start
Hmm.
about disabilities. What does disabilities look like? What does that mean? The mindset that we all have as far as disabilities go, I mean, that could range from anything.
Yeah.
And there's an old mindset of what disabilities mean. The history behind people with disabilities is sad because they were thought less of.
Hmm.
They couldn't accomplish anything. They weren't going to be productive, you know. And so even though laws have been changed, that old mindset is still kind of there.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody who doesn't deal with special needs, um, and you don't know what parents are going through on a day-to-day basis or what a person with disabilities is going through, then it makes it kind of more um, difficult to have a shift in mindset. So that's why it's important to have those conversations. We're taught that to be ashamed of the fact that somebody in your family is disabled.
Yeah.
And that's so in the land of social media, like people aren't posting a lot of the time, like my child just got diagnosed
Yeah.
or
That's true.
this is what is happening. And we just had a mutual friend actually. She posted something about her child, and I sent her a note because I thanked her for that because people need to know like what how these kids struggle.
Yes.
Like the story of Zanata, like how she struggled into where she got today. She did all that work, and there was a team behind that. What
Hmm.
does it take? What is it? People need to know that, and I
Yeah.
think if people knew that, then I think there would be a shift
Yeah.
in the mindset about disabilities.
I like that. So, well, the one first thing I want to say, unfortunately, I'm sorry about that. With your friend passed away, but her dream is still alive through you, which is
Yeah.
amazing to me. Um, so that's awesome. And I want to also ask for those that don't know, what is a IP meeting? Like, what is that for
An
those that?
IEP meeting is an
Oh, I said it wrong.
individual. It's an individual education plan. So
Okay.
basically, when we go in and a child has um, education services given to
Hmm.
them,
Hmm.
then it's put into an IEP.
Hmm.
And once it's put in there, it's basically law. So the school has to provide those services for a child. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't just be like, we don't really have that here, so we're not going to do it. No, you have to provide it for this child. If
Hmm.
you aren't, then the parent can go in. The parent has rights, so does the student, to go in and tell them, like needs aren't being provided. And so the school can be in a lot of trouble for that. So they basically, if they say, well, we can't provide those needs, okay, well, where's my child going to get those needs serviced? So they can be sent to a different school, to a specialized school, but the school that they originally started at is financially responsible for that.
Okay.
So schools, more or less, they're going to work with you. They don't want to be dinged by the state or by the law stating that they did not provide services for somebody. So it's important that parents know what their rights are, that they were given those rights at every meeting. So it's important that you actually do read that.
Okay.
Like, I understand, like, you're going to a lot of meetings and you get them every time and you're just like, okay, yeah, thank you. Make sure you look at it and know what your child's rights are and what your rights are as a parent. It's really important that you know that, so that you don't go in there
not knowing
and then you end up losing services for your child.
So you said something too, as far as like, having that team, having that support system, and excuse me, it made me think of, at times people, depending on what's going on with your child, people may stare. Kids, they don't know. Of course, you tell your kids, hey, something's going on here. Hey, don't judge, whatever the case is. But a lot of times it's adults, right? The ones that's staring or whispering or snickering or whatever it is. So, what is, if you see maybe a parent struggling, maybe, in public in certain situation, or whatever the case is, whatever is going on, what can we do, as just a regular citizen? What can we do when we witness that? Is it just more so, hey, you know what, just don't be staring and making little comments here, or is there something we can do to help? Like what?
Yeah, I think the staring in the comments should go away. Like,
Yeah,
I know
agree.
that, like, as someone that was young, before I had children, before I was even, like, I've dealt with special needs in my family, but not to the extent of being a parent. So, I'm in my 20s, we've all done it. Like, we've been in a restaurant, at a,
Yeah,
store, and we see a kid just throwing down on the ground. Like,
yeah,
he didn't get his way. Like, and what's our response? Our
yeah,
response is like, ugh, like, my kid is never going to do that. I will beat my child if he ever
yeah.
does that, So, because we don't know,
True.
what that child is going through.
Mm,
You can tell the difference between a temper tantrum and a meltdown. And
mm,
I can't tell it more because I know what meltdowns are and I've experienced them with Sonata, but you can tell when a child is throwing a temper tantrum and they want candy, and the mom's like, no, you can't have it. And so he's throwing himself on the ground and he's just throwing a temper tantrum. And the mom is just like, okay, here. Like, I don't want to deal with this in the store. She just hands him a candy bar. The kid shuts it off like that. He's like, I got it. Like,
yeah.
I got what I wanted.
Mhm.
So I don't need to do this. A child with special needs isn't able to shut it off
Yeah, true.
because it's not because they're spoiled or they have poor behaviors. It's because they're trying to process, why is it that I'm not getting this something? And if you've dealt with anybody with autism, like, they're focused.
Yeah.
Like, that one thing, that's their focus. And so they're trying to process, why didn't I get that? And um, so you hand it to them. You're like, okay, here. It does nothing. Like, so there's a difference. And so the stares need to stop. I don't think approaching a family, a parent
Mhm.
would help, because I know the more people that, if they surrounded Zanata, the more it would escalate. So it's sometimes better not to, if a parent, and some parents won't accept the help.
Mhm.
They're not
Yeah.
gonna, like,
Yeah.
Okay, who's this strange guy coming up to me and
That's true.
asking
That's
me
true.
like to help with my child?
Yeah, that's
So
true.
sometimes they won't accept the help.
Hmm.
And so I think it's always best to, if you do truly feel that you can be of help, to just ask the parent, hey, can I help you out?
Yeah.
And if they say no, like, okay, like I couldn't help this person. So, but you can see that going to stores, going to different places
Hmm.
is super anxiety filled process. You have to get your kids ready, you have to prep them for this outing, you have to make sure they try and maintain in the store. Like it's it's stressful. And
Yeah.
so if your kid doesn't maintain and starts having a meltdown, it's doubly like more stressful because then you have other people looking at you and judging you.
No, that's
So
true.
that makes it like difficult. So that aspect, like I think we just need to be aware that when kids are having a rough time in the
Mhm.
store, to kind of have more empathy for parents.
Mhm.
Like we can sit there and say, you know, like that kid needs to be spanked. That's what needs to happen. But we're parents. How many times has that happened to us?
Yeah.
You know, and I do have a neurotypical child, so it happens to
Yeah.
us, even with kids with no special needs. My kids were extremely well behaved,
Mhm.
so it happens
Yeah.
regardless. So we're judging people based on their parenting. Why are we doing that to other parents?
No,
It
I
doesn't
mean
make sense.
that's a fair point because I was thinking like for example, my youngest, my oldest son, he was very shy and stuff like that too. But I feel like my youngest is even worse. He has like really bad social anxiety, like really, really.
Hmm.
If he's with me, he's fine, but even then, he's like hanging on super tight, and I have
Yeah.
really prepare him, and that's just with that, right? Not to downplay that, like that's a real thing. But I can only imagine like prepping Zoe and things with different outings and things like that in the past, or just parents in general, how that can probably be.
Right, because our kids have to adapt to
Yeah,
our
exactly,
world.
exactly.
We're not adapting to them. So we're basically telling them
Hmm.
from day one, there's something wrong with you. You can't act that way. You can't do that.
Mm.
You know, we're constantly telling them. And I'm not saying like just let kids run wild in stores,
Hmm.
but at some point, you have to look at that and not pass that judgment on people because
Mm.
we don't know what they're going through. We don't know what that child is dealing with.
Mm.
Um, I'm thankful that I don't have to deal with that aspect
Mm.
now that Zanata's older, but it was rough, like probably for the first 10 years
Mm.
that she was. But I had to keep taking her into stores, taking her into restaurants. I wanted her to be able to be in those environments,
Yeah.
and not have people staring at her, and
Mm.
not I wanted to her just to experience going to a restaurant, going to the movie theater, going to the grocery store was rough, but I had to learn that there were other things going on with her. Like she has sensory integration disorder,
Mm.
and I didn't realize that the lights really,
Mm.
the minute we stepped into that store, she would just fall apart, and I couldn't understand what was going on. So my thinking is like, I'm just going to keep taking
Yeah.
her. And eventually she did adjust and acclimate. She is able to self regulate, um, so that she doesn't have those episodes when she's out in public.
Yeah.
And she's very social, which is very, um, not a lot of kids with autism tend to be that social, but she's very social. So, but she still has a hard time in
Mm.
those.
Okay. Because does some of it have to do because I remember when I worked at the school, I cannot remember, but one of the students he had like 5, 6 different things, whatever. Like literally was kicked out of different schools.
Mhm.
And they told us, and when they told us, they told us some of the like extreme things he did. And so I remember some of like the teachers and stuff were already kind of judging him, already kind of,
Yeah.
viewing him a certain way. And I kind of let him be. I would say, hey, what's up? Or I would even like compliment him. Hey, I like those shoes, and just, go by my day. And then one day he saw me and he just gave me like a fist pump. I'm like, oh, okay. And
Mhm.
but he started to trust me where now he would just randomly come up to me and start talking to me about certain things, right?
Yeah.
And he had so many different things like going on with him, like because he would just randomly just like he wouldn't want everyone basically like you said like he wouldn't want a bunch of people all at once coming towards him
Right.
um for whatever reason, but it was just very unique to me where he would literally, not want to be bothered, but then he would come up to me, for example, and just start
Yeah.
expressing certain things. And so I was just wondering because the other teachers like, hey, don't do this, and they would even follow him where we was instructed not to follow him. Like, hey,
Yeah.
he gets his episodes, just let him be. He'll come back around, just let him be. But my question, I guess, to you is some of it too as well with trust. Like, is it maybe like is one of those things like you have to really build their trust up, or is it just depends on the situation?
I know for Zanata, like rapport is everything.
Okay.
So creating a report, she used to have this when she was nonverbal.
Mhm.
Her dad didn't have a rapport with her
Okay.
because he couldn't put himself in that place at the
Mhm.
time. And he would come home and she'd be like playing with all of her toys, lining them up.
Mhm.
She's focused.
Yeah.
He'd come home and he'd walk in the door and he would, say hi to her, and she would look up at him and then she would look back down.
Mhm.
And he would be like, she hates me. Like,
Mhm.
she doesn't hate you.
Yeah.
Like, if you created a rapport with her, like, she would more than likely not have that reaction.
Mhm.
And so I made him like do occupational therapy because everything was home
Mhm.
because she was so young. Like, so she was only 2, 3 at the time. And so he did like maybe like 4 sessions,
Mhm.
and there was such a huge turnaround in the
Mhm.
rapport between the two of them.
Wow.
Like, because he was working with her and helping her communicate. And so that helped a lot. And it helps. Zanata tends to have really good rapports with people. We tend to have rapports with people because um, we, but there's always conditions behind it. Zanata does not have those conditions. Like, she just, if somebody's even mean to her, she still like extends that love for them the next
Yeah.
day. Like, it's done, it's over with. And whereas, we're here being all salty, holding grudges. It's,
Yeah.
so she doesn't have that.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's not a good thing.
Mhm.
So, so it's definitely a trust. And for Zanata, like, she trusts people, and until you show her otherwise, it doesn't wreck the rapport.
Mhm.
It doesn't change things for her, whereas it would for us. So it's just something that over time that when she was young, it was helpful because that was how she was able to learn from her peers
Mhm.
because she created rapports with them. When this whole time you're being told as a parent that your daughter is not going to be able to create these rapports because she's autistic. They
Mhm.
have no social skills, is what you're being told. So those are steps that, but you can't sit there and say, like, every person is different.
Yeah.
Every child's different.
True.
So they learn differently. They just, even our neurotypical kids are it's different for each and every one of them. So trust is huge for kids. Follow through is everything to her.
So like you said, every child is different, which I know I have 4 kids, so
Hmm.
I definitely understand that. For you, having your 2 amazing daughters who I think the world of, but like how do you navigate through that? Either from yourself or either, you help parents and things like that. How do you navigate through that when the parent is where the parent, one child needs more attention obviously than the other. Like how do you navigate through that basically?
I think it's difficult because you have to find, so your neurotypical kid who doesn't have special needs, finding where finding that fit for them.
Mm,
I don't want Mariposa to be in the position of being a caretaker for her sister. That
mm,
was my whole thing of her when she was younger. Like,
mhm,
I don't want her to be, they were attending the same school. And I specifically told the school, if she has a meltdown, you better never, ever bring Mariposa to come and try and fix that,
mhm,
because there's going to be a time where she's not able to. And I never wanted her to feel that, because it's the worst feeling when you're not able to comfort your child. So
mm,
I didn't want her to experience that as a sister. So
mhm,
I really worked on making sure that Mariposa had her own thing, separate from Zanata. Um, and in some instances it worked, and in some it didn't. So I know Mariposa would probably she probably would tell you Zanata's spoiled, like she got all the attention, I got zero. Like, she who knows? She's a mom now herself, so that
mhm.
may be not the case, but it's difficult on siblings. It definitely is, because at times I would tell her, I'm it for Zanata.
Yeah.
I'm her voice.
Mm,
I Your sister can't do certain things. It's harder for her to do things. And at the time, I know that that was the wrong thing to say to her, because she was so young, and because she's a child too. She
yeah.
needs attention too. So, um, trying to make her understand that is definitely not the route to go.
That's what I was
So,
gonna ask, like, how do you, for the parents out there that, may be dealing with that, how do you help your child not to feel that resentment maybe, which is difficult, right? Because
yeah,
you have to obviously give a lot of your attention to your child that needs the most attention, obviously.
right.
It's just like it is doesn't change if if you had a baby, and your child is 16 and they're like, "Hey, I'm
I'm
getting
still
ready."
here.
Yeah, like, "Hey, I got this going on. I have this game." You're like, "Okay, I understand. Like, I want to go to your game, but your whatever 1-year-old brother has a fever, right, or whatever the case is." So, obviously, it's a little bit different, but just as far as like, how do you, right? Because with a little child, obviously, they're like, "Okay, it sucks now, but they'll grow out of it, and they're going to be doing their own thing. I don't really got to
Hmm.
worry about them." But obviously, in this situation, like you said, like, "Hey, I'm in a lot of ways I'm my child's voice, I'm the one that's gonna make sure
Right,
certain things are taken care of because if I don't, who will?" Right?
right.
So how do you, as a parent, I guess, how do you at least be maybe you can't necessarily prevent it all the way, but how do you make sure you're conscious of making sure your child doesn't feel, left out or
I don't know of like a lot of families where this sibling didn't have resentment. I
okay.
I think it's rare, and I'm not sure what those parents. I have to find those parents first, because I want to
Okay.
talk to them and find out exactly what they did.
Mm,
I know that Mariposa is now in the mindset of, if something happens to my mom, I'm going to take care of Zanata. Like,
mm,
she's in that mindset now, and I'm thankful for that, because there's things that I have set in place for Zanata.
mm,
And so it eliminates like a lot of worry. But I think for for siblings to not have that resentment, it's good to create things that are their own thing.
Mm.
And like for Mariposa, it was volleyball. There were moments where I would take her certain places, and we still do this now, where I go certain places that Zanata won't go to. She might not like the food, she won't eat there or whatever. So then me and Mariposa will go and do those things together. Um, so it's important to do that. So it's their thing.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with Zanata or, you know, but I think the thing that I would do differently is include her a little more
Mm.
in probably Sonata's therapies a little more, so that I feel like she would have had a better understanding of what Sonata was experiencing.
Mm.
And I think that's what I would have done differently as far as would have it I don't think it would have like eliminated the resentment.
Yeah.
I feel that teenagers,
Yeah.
sometimes they go through their thing, and it's like, you know so I know that resentment is completely gone, and
Mm.
that's just from their interaction with each other as young adults.
Yes.
So, and I think a lot has changed since Mariposa has become a parent herself. So
Mm. Yeah.
I think she definitely is she's more nurturing towards and she's always been very protective,
Mm.
but it's more of like on a, like, you touch my sister
Yeah.
and I'll come after you type of kind of protection. It wasn't like nurturing, like I love you type of thing.
Hey, that was her way. Okay, that was
Yeah. Yes,
um.
I know.
But you said actually, I think too. You in a way, I think you did. Even though, like you said, hey, I want to find those parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
That um, there was no resentment, but I think you actually nailed it on the head. Where being able, again, not where they have to necessarily be the caretaker at a young age, do everything, but just have an understanding, right? It's
Right.
just like, for example, if you know, I don't know. Your kids are old enough, but it's not working out. You're like, man, okay, it's not gonna work out with your dad or your mom, and you let them know, hey, I really care about them, but this is what was going on. Obviously, not everything, but hey,
Right.
what, the love fell off, and they're with someone else, and I'm focused on you guys. Now, I think as a child, of course, you'll be upset, but you understand, like, okay, wow, like, all right, well, whatever. This was an unhealthy marriage,
Right.
right? Like, I'm sad, but I get it, and
Right.
so same thing as far as, okay, you know what? It sucks that my mom's giving all this attention, but I get it. My sister, my brother is dealing with X, Y, and Z. And wow, that's a lot going on. Like, matter of fact, that makes me want to be even more protective over them.
Right.
Right. Even though I get upset. But so I think what you said is actually, just I think it's great just for them to really have an understanding. Hey, these are the things that's going on. And they, whatever the situation is, maybe, they literally can't control when this is happening,
Right.
right?
And
You
they
just
create their own perception.
yeah, yeah,
We're not there explaining things to them, so they're creating their own perception, like maybe at 6 years old, like
yes, that's
in
true.
their 6-year-old mind of this is what's happening, like, and it may be bigger than what it really
Mhm,
is. And I even know, like, even when Mariposa and the girl's father and I split up, like, I made sure, like, Mariposa was young, she was
mhm,
4,
mhm.
but I wanted to, like, explain to her. I didn't want her to be like, oh, like, we're just apart
Yes.
because this doesn't concern you. It doesn't have anything to do with you.
Mhm,
So we told her and explained to her in a way of like, oh, like, how your half sisters come and visit. Um, that's what you're going to be doing. Like, I explained it that
mhm.
way.
Yeah.
And she jumped up and she's like, we're moving? That's so cool. Like, she was so excited. And I was like, and then she was going somewhere with her dad, and she takes off to go get her shoes. And I'm just like, that did not go the way that I thought it would. And he's all, she doesn't understand. Like, and so that was her perception, though.
Yeah,
So I think you create that perception. If you don't talk to your children,
that's true.
and I think we're taught that, like, kids shouldn't deal with adult things,
Yep.
but this is their family.
Hmm.
Zanata is part of this family. So how do you explain
Hmm.
on her terms when she's 6 or 7?
Hmm.
When she becomes a teenager, how do you explain those things? So
Hmm.
I think that's why I say now that I would have her more involved.
Okay,
And,
I like that.
I don't think she would have been opposed to that,
Hmm.
because then she would have been included. And I think that was probably something that she was missing growing up.
I like that. So, there's a lot of obviously, or not a lot. It happens where there's resentment. Maybe isolation, feel alone as a sibling. But I want to ask, maybe as a parent, like, is there times as a parent where either you or people you work with, where they feel maybe isolated in a way? And if so, what can they do about that? Or is there like a community? Is there certain thing, like, how do you go about that if you do feel like, like, oh man, no one really understands, where I try to talk to my friends, but they're not dealing with the same type of situation, you
Right.
know, just feeling almost like alone in that sense. Like, did you ever deal with that, or have you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I'm from a small town.
Mhm,
So there wasn't a big support system there. I had to search for it. And even parents with special needs,
mhm,
they weren't a huge support because our kid, like I said, each of our kids are different. We're dealing with different things. Um, it is good to find support within that community of
mhm,
special needs with parents because they know what you're going through. They have that understanding. But sometimes it's important to be with the people that are around and
mhm.
kind of being involved in that aspect. And I think that just kind of goes along with, like, you just want, especially for your child with special needs, like, you want them to be accepted.
Yeah.
You as the parent want to be accepted as well. And so when you experience certain things that you don't see that happening, then you tend to, like, withdraw and, like, these aren't the people that I want to include, but that's where those conversations happen. I didn't have those conversations where I'm explaining what it is that is going on day to day.
Mm,
So they don't know what I'm going through. They have a mindset of their own, whether it be good or bad, but they're not having any understanding. So obviously, naturally, we're not going to see eye to eye.
yeah.
And so I'm going to withdraw and not be a part of that group. And
Mm,
so you're excluded, but you also tend to isolate from things. I'm not going to take Zanata at the age of 6. I'm not going to take her to church
mhm,
and have people staring at me or people making comments
mm.
or probably telling me that she doesn't belong there. Like,
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
hurtful. So why put myself through that? Why put Zanata through that? Um, so it's real easy to self isolate, and I think parents need to not do that anymore. They need to have those conversations with people,
Yeah.
um, because what we don't understand, then we can't really see what is happening. Like,
Mm,
we're basically just looking in through, like, glass, and we're
yeah.
seeing this kid's struggling, this parent is also struggling. I don't have to deal with it, so I'm just going to go on my merry way.
True.
And we can even say, I know somebody that has a child with special needs, but you don't truly know because
Mm,
that person has not had that conversation with you.
true.
So conversations need to happen. People need to be more open about discussing things rather than being ashamed. Um, and I know that there was an occasion where a family member they took Zanata to a birthday party, and this was when she was little, nonverbal, and so she's playing with other kids when normally she wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So she's playing, and someone who knew that she had a diagnosis of autism had made the comment to our family member, like, you can't even tell that there's anything wrong with her. And they were just so like relieved that nobody noticed that she was autistic.
Yeah.
And so you think like people make comments like that because they don't know. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it's like. And I don't feel that people should have to experience it in
Mm-hmm.
order to know.
Yeah.
You either share or you don't. And if you don't, then there's not going to be a change. There's not going to be a shift in mindset ever. Because we're keeping it to ourselves and we're keeping it where we're being told we have to be in our own little community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not what needs to happen. And it's not going to happen for our children
Mm-hmm.
when what they want is to be accepted and to be out in the community.
Yeah.
So I think, like, until people don't feel that, then there won't be that change. But
Yeah.
I think it will happen eventually. I'm hoping it will happen in my lifetime. I think a lot more parents are open to discussing things
I
and
like.
talking about it.
So I have two more questions for you before I close this out. What is one thing, I guess, that you wish people would really understand when it comes to parents that are, raising a child with a disability? And then the second question is, what are certain things, or what is maybe that one thing that either they should know from the, like, maybe their medical provider that can help them on certain things that they might not know about, or what is something that, if it's not maybe something with the medical provider, what is what is basically a certain support, like what's a support that that either the medical can do, or a group that you know of can do, or something like that.
Well, I think like for medical providers, and it's only because I experienced this
Hmm.
when I went in and was like, there's something going on with Sonata. A lot of doctors, and I get it. Like, we're in an age where people are going on WebMD and they're diagnosing themselves and going in and being like, I have this. You need to
Yeah.
give me this for it. Like, I'm sure doctors deal with it all the time. I know that they deal with parents that are like maybe first time parents. They're worried about everything. Like, um, so I feel that doctors should definitely have like an open mind. And that's was my experience. My doctor was very open to sending us out on referrals to check certain things that were going on with Zanata. He even told me at one point, hey, like, you're doing a good job, like, just because she's not talking, like, second siblings talk later anyways, so don't worry about it. I want you freaking out and thinking, oh my gosh, my daughter's autistic. Like, don't think that. Like, you're doing a good job. But he was still sending us out on those referrals because I was telling him, you know, these doctors don't live with us. So
Yeah.
they don't see like what's happening. They only have those few minutes with that child to really, so just have an open mind, give the parent the referral so they can have things checked. The earlier the better. Early intervention is something that kids benefit from. Zanata benefited from that. She
Mhm.
received services at a year and a half. So, and it helped her in the long run. So, it's important that they have an open mind,
Like,
um, for sure. So, and that's the experience I had, and I'm really thankful for that.
that's good. Okay, and then I guess, and then the other question, basically, what is something that you feel that either, just people or other parents that's not necessarily dealing with, uh, or not raising, I'm sorry, not raising a child with disability. What is something if you could just tell them one thing, what is one thing you wish that they just understood instead of, the judging, the staring?
I think that, our families are not that different.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have a child with special needs,
Mm-hmm.
but day to day stuff is pretty much the same as, well, not your family because you have littles and running around, but day to day stuff on how we deal with our teenagers, things still come up, whether they're delayed or not. Like, we are dealing with other instances where, out in the community where we have to be the voice for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it is stressful dealing with schools and dealing with doctors and the whole slew of things that we have to deal with. But our families are not that much different. We're
Mm.
still a family.
Yes.
We're still able to do the same things that anybody else can. And I'm thankful for the communities that we've been in, whether it be with church, whether it be with at some schools. I won't say all of them, but some schools. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also important for, you know, because teachers are part of that and therapists are part of that, and they have a job to do. And it is not, and it is one team that's working together for the success of
Mm-hmm.
this child. It's not us against them.
Yeah.
So um, I think the perception of disabilities is needs to change, and that happens with education. So if you are open to finding out more, then do that. If you have a friend who has a child with special needs, find out more um, about what it is that's going on with that child. If it's autism, find out more about that because the
Mm-hmm.
spectrum is huge. So um, find out how your friend is doing
Yeah.
as a parent. Like, you know, um, there's so many things that are going on with these families. Like, if you're married, like at the time when Zanata was diagnosed, the success rate in marriages was, or of divorce happening was at 83% if you
Oh,
had special needs involved in your. I think that I'm hoping that has changed because I think there's more people that are more apt to step up and
mm-hmm.
show up for their children.
Mm-hmm.
Special needs are not. So I think I I should probably that should be something I should look up. But I think there's just so much going on. So you know, we have fathers who are um, dealing with special needs, and it's different for them. It was
Yes.
very different for Zanata's father because um, here I am, a mom, and I'm like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure Zanata has the help that she needs.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas her dad was just like, what is going to happen to her? How is she, like, he was so far ahead that he was so worried and just like, what is going to happen to her? How is she going to, um, who's going to be there for her as she gets older, and so it was very different for him as a father. So I think as friends, and you see that happening, like it's totally good to be like, especially if you're guys, like to find out like, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on with your son, with your daughter? Is there anything that I can do? If that was presented to me, I would have been so appreciative of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely got me into a pattern of like, I have to do this on my own because I don't have that support. So I think think that would help parents like just alleviate a lot of that stress. But there is truly not a huge difference
Yeah.
between the two. So
Man, I'm really enjoying this conversation. As we close out though, for those that need that support that you provide, or would love for you to speak somewhere, or just the service you provide, where is it? Obviously, Facebook, if you're watching from Facebook, obviously the information is on the screen. So you can find her on Facebook.
right.
But, or if they want to contact you another way or whatever, what are different ways they can maybe contact you?
They can definitely contact me on any social media.
Okay.
Facebook, I'm on Instagram. Um, you can email me directly. And
Okay.
so that um,
And
social media has
what's
been,
your Instagram? If they want to, well, you don't even know,
yeah, I don't even know. Because I use Facebook a lot more. I just
Okay.
recently started using Instagram more
Okay. So,
because I noticed that there's a bigger like audience as
okay.
far as like I've been getting like a lot of hits on Instagram lately. So that's been kind of nice.
Okay. So
I know
I'm
my name is on there, Mandy Granados, and some numbers. I don't know. I'll
So
have to
I will put
I
the
will
Instagram.
post that in the comments
Yes,
maybe.
I'll put it in the comments on YouTube. I'll put it on there as well. So if you guys do want to contact her on Instagram, on Facebook, her email as well, definitely do that, guys. Um, if you guys haven't, please subscribe on YouTube, A Dreamer's Ambition, or on follow on Instagram, A Dreamer's Ambition, Facebook, Sean Laurie. Actually, if you want to find, if you're not my friend or connected like that, I guess go to Sean.Laurie87 and it should pop up. Also, if you're not part of the community, I definitely encourage you to be part of the No Perfect Parent group. We're definitely just trying to encourage each other, sharing stories. I literally was just sharing a story earlier about my crazy son. But yeah, so like always, guys, like always, before I go, I just want to remind you, parents, to keep being an inspiration and never downplay your impact for your loved ones so that you can conquer the chaos.